In the spirit of this video being a pile of crap, I'm videotaping or video recording, videotaping, look how old I am. I'm recording this in the spirit of that crappiness. This was a video that I recorded trying to do another self-critical, and there's this new bug that happens every now and then where even though your headphones are plugged in, the recording, unbeknownst to you, stops going through the headphones and the little microphone, and it goes through the iPad. So that means that you can hear every tap that I do with the pencil, and every time my hand brushes by like the external microphone and all that kind of stuff, or internal microphone. And I put up a video, a poll. God, I'm trying to really lean into the crappiness. I put up a poll on YouTube asking you guys if you just wanted to see it anyways, because I put effort into recording it and it kind of ends abruptly, and it's like a masterclass in like bad staging for a video. That said, it's long, and I think there's an aspect to it that people might dig, so here it is. Brace yourself for bad audio, not super well thought out teaching, and a bunch of other stuff. But it was an overwhelming yes for posting it, so here it is. We are going to fly by the seat of our pants on here. Now, I haven't really thought through what I want to change here. I think that it might actually kind of weirdly be better to hear me do it in real time, similar to how I did before. Now, I am not going to recreate this image. I know a lot of people said, could you please repaint it, redraw it, whatever. The thing is, I don't really like revisiting things too much like that. I like going back and analyzing things, but I don't necessarily like going back and saying, I'm going to completely redo this new thing. That thing where people say like they have like the 2010 and the 2020 version and stuff. I think that's super cool and I really like watching it, but I just don't like rehashing it myself. So let's talk about this piece though, and talk about what I did back then, some of the methods that I used, and then how I would start changing this now. Now, it's a little hard to record off screen, especially because I have this like stupid little cough that won't go away. So I'm going to try to not cough in your ear. And at the same time, I'm going to try to stop the recording in the right amount of time and all that kind of shit. So, all right, let's get into it. So let's just grab the fat pencil here and look at the illustration as a whole. Some stuff that I want to highlight actually that is in here that you may have seen in recent pieces because I still do them. I think that it's really important to go back into here and just say like, check it out, this is a super old piece and I still do some of these techniques. So like when we look here, by the way, it's low res. Sorry, I don't know where the original PSD is. I know I have it on a hard drive somewhere, but you can see the rim light. There's like a big one right there. You can see it all across here, this white rim light. Another thing in this white rim light that I think is like interesting and just kind of worth pointing out is one of the tricks that you see me use all the time. Like I do it in the monster character design series. Again, it's super blurry, but see how it gets really dark right there? Right after the rim light. So you've got this basically like a white rim light and then almost like a dark part right there. That's actually something that I still do today. So how do I do that? When I do that, let's go ahead and make this black or just dark. This is pretty easy to replicate really fast, but we've got a rim light. Let's make this a little bigger. Okay, so let's say this is a rim light. Let's say it's following some sort of a form. And just to make sure this really works well, let's get actually, let's switch to this. Okay, that's the shape that it's rim lighting. Something like that. What we do is we duplicate this and then blur it because like that's probably what we're going to do to get that bright rim light. But we'll also duplicate this one. So yeah, let's go ahead and duplicate it. I was gonna do something different, but let's duplicate it. Okay, make it black. That's one way to do this. There's a few ways to get what you're going for here. And then you just kind of shift it a bit, like that. Now, when it's jet black like that, it just creates like a drop shadow, or it makes the line look like it's like an extrusion or something like that. So what you want to do then is you want to find some way that you're going to bring that darkness down. So you can either just like reduce its opacity, or maybe you set it to a overlay and adjust its opacity, maybe a soft light and adjust its opacity. But the point is you want to get that dark edge, and that's because it's just going to push your rim light to be that much brighter. So now we can turn this back on, and you can see that it does that. Another way to do this, by the way, maybe something that might be considered a little bit more elegant, which is another thing that I do on things, on paintings, is more of like a soft version of this. So you're making sure that it's just getting darkened on that, you know, in some way. This again, this is a little extra heavy because I'm just kind of bullshitting it right now. But you get the gist of what I'm going for there. So that's what I'm doing. Let's kill all of this. That's what I'm doing right there. I don't blur it though, you can see. This is like a hard painterly rim light. And when you look at it right there too, you can see that darkening is actually like pretty solid. It's not like blurred in any way. There's no softening happening. It's just a duplication of the white, and then it's like shifted over a little bit. It looks like it's kind of shifted like that way, because I was also going for a solution that would be like fits all, and the rim light is kind of coming from here, like this whole area is generating this rim light. But you'll notice I'm not using a rim light in this piece because it's coming from a lighting source. I'm actually using it like you would in a photo shoot, where there is a light source that's creating that, but the purpose is to highlight that side of the character, not actually to directly reference some sort of light that's happening. Okay. So as far as techniques are concerned, you've seen me a lot on this channel do the method where I will paint a flat and then I'll have like a shadow layer on top. This one is hand painted. Sorry, I shouldn't say hand painted. It's all hand painted. That was misspeaking. This one is through color pick and multiple layers. So for instance, in the case of the skin, you can actually come in here and you can identify some core color. So there's a core color right there that looks like let's move this down just a little bit so we're clear. This looks like it is just defined. It doesn't have anything that's affecting its color. That is a raw color. Right here, it looks like that might actually be a color, or that's just a lower opacity of what the actual color is. So this is probably the color. And then we have this as a color, although it also looks like at the time I probably had that as a color too. So this is essentially 4 skin colors. That's how I broke down the skin. That means that the other ones are probably similar as well. The orange is probably 4, maybe only 3 on that. So let's see what that looks like. So if we just come in here and we'll just get really like ham-fisted with it. I'm not going to try and be like extra precise or anything. And we've got, let's say that. Put that right there. And then this one. Now, right now, I'm just kind of showing you guys what I did. I'm not really saying what I would do differently. We'll get to that in a second, I promise. So for those of you who've seen me do a lot of the multiply technique, this is the way I used to paint and actually still do paint today. If I'm not limited by the layers, or if I'm trying to find like, or if I'm taking more time or something like that. Let's go into the painting and look at, say, is it painting or artistic? There's a brush I used to use in here all the time back in the old days. Oh yeah, here we go. I think it is... Oy vey, it doesn't really matter. Let's go with, actually, let's not go with any of that. Let's just go with the round brush. That way you can see a little bit more specifically what I might do. And so when I paint in this method, not so much back when I actually did this piece here, but when I paint now in this method, I'll usually paint with the solid round brush or maybe something similar, and then I'll set up my this to be the eraser, and I will never use the smudge. So you can see already it's like a very, very different system than what I currently use. I would lay down this as my flat, you could say. And then on a new layer, I would go up to my next color, which I usually wouldn't have it predefined like this. I would just color pick as I went. And let's say, let's just try to define like something here. There's no like obviously surface here, but let's try to get something. And then I would lower this opacity probably. Although on Photoshop, I would lower the fill. I mean the fill. Yeah, the fill. My gosh, that's how like my brain just, I think it's fill. Anyways, I would lower the fill. So let's say that this is the weird hard edge that we've got here, but then this slopes up. So I'll create another layer for a second here and say that this slopes up like that. Yeah, I really don't like having that be a lower opacity. So we'll just go like this for now. And then I'll switch to my eraser and just softly, softly erase away at something like that. And then on this one, maybe I'll softly erase away here. Just as an example. This is like such a undefined shape, but at least you kind of get the gist of it. And then I'll merge those two together. So now we've got that value, that level, although it also changes hue. Excuse me. Then on this one, we'll come in, we'll do something like this where we'll catch that edge and we'll start going down from there. It's almost like we've created like a flesh dune, like a sand dune that is just made of flesh. I also will like use like this as a selection so I don't go outside, or something else as a selection if I really want to, but it's not really important for this because we're not taking it to the edge. Then use my eraser again, and I'll pull this back a little bit. Obviously, if there's some more character in here, I might like put, something in there to like denote that there's some little detail, but for this demo, like that's not really what we're trying to capture. So get that kind of done. And then last but not least, we will grab this brightest color, and that will be, in the case of this particular palette, that will be the brightest aspect of the whole thing. So we'll do some of this. Maybe we'll even use a different brush. It depends. I'm pressing really, really lightly right now to try and get this to do what I wanted to do. And then again, go back to here, face away, and we've got this like kind of edge, which I might even bring that intensity down just a little bit. Okay, so when we pull out now, we've got this. And so this is the way that I would always paint in the old days, unless I was doing something cartoony. That's the actual thing that's the most interesting about the methods I've been using over the last, let's call it year or so. It is a painterly version of what I used to do in like a cell shade style. So I'm actually going to be replicating that in a future video for you guys coming up soon. So yeah. Also then, if we were going to do the rim light here, now the rim light style that we have in this piece would be something like this. I would come in now and I would paint in this rim light. I don't really know what like shape I'm defining here right now, but let's just say that this is the shape. And then probably do just like a little bit of tapering. Again, I didn't do that this much back in the day. This is more of like a technique of the more modified look and feel. If those of you who follow me know like my Pink Hair Girl series, like that was really where I got good at laying down the paint and then pulling it back with a soft eraser. I didn't do that much. Excuse me, I didn't do that much back when I did this piece that we're looking at right now. So again, duplicate this and make this black, and then shift it inward, and then lower its opacity. I think that it looks better though if you blur it. Something like that. And then you can still select your base shape and then select the inverse and clear that. And then if you really wanna, I was gonna clear this. If you really want to tidy the whole thing up, you can also just use your base shape to clear like everything. Depending on how, like I just did like a blob, but you may want to, let's see, where are we here? You may want to have like, you've got like a hand and you're trying to clear everything away from the hand or whatever. This kind of looks like some sort of weird flesh dune bell pepper or something. I don't know, it's kind of fucked up. But this is the method more or less that I used, although now I'm better at it than I was back when I did this. That is the method more or less that I used on this piece right here. And so I did that for everything. And my color picking on these was usually done in a bit of an arc, and it does depend on the color. So when you're using like the multiply method, you're basically succumbing to the fact that that multiply color will always affect the bottom colors in the same way. You can tweak that through lots of different methods. There are ways that you can get more tweak out of it, but you can see right here, we're sitting in the almost red area. Like if you're looking down here, like it's almost red. And then when we select that color, you can see we've moved over to orange. That's because there is a progression to color depending on the type of light that is hitting it. If you look at the way that I have constructed this piece, it is basically a cool shadow to warm highlight transition. And then depending on the color that we're dealing with, we sort of emphasize that more or less. Now, this character I should talk about was done at a time when I was doing like this lineup of characters that were all based off different musical genres for like a musical beat 'em up game idea that I had. Similarly to when you see my monster lineup or my Village Corrupted lineup or that other lineup that I recently posted that was from this like futuristic thing. I do this all the time. I've done this since I was a kid. I build little character pitch packs and I go through like a cast of characters and I come up with their backstories and like a loose story, and then I move on to the next thing. This character was from that as well. So some other techniques that I used here that I'll just highlight real quick before I start doing some sort of a redesign is there's lines. You can see that my lines are here. These lines were pencil. They were drawn pencil on paper, scanned into a computer, and then brought in here to be colored. I shouldn't say brought in here because this is Procreate. It was brought into Photoshop to be colored. So this is a bit of a rendered look paired with a line. The line is probably set to an overlay. It might also not be. It might just be raw line. It's kind of hard to tell. You start to lose the line in some areas, which tells me that it might have been an overlay, but it gets really black. Sometimes if the line art gets really black, that might be because I duplicated it as well and then erased away in sections so that I could try to strengthen the line. So the way that might look, let's go to, we need some color in order to show this. So I'll just switch to fat pencil and go black. And then let's draw a line. So we've got a line. Let's say it's a built up line because that's what I'm using in this anyways. That's the way I usually draw. So we've got this line like that. Let's just call it like that. It usually doesn't take me that long to draw, but I just kind of, whatever. Let's ignore that. So if we set this to an overlay, it picks up the color that's underneath in a really intense way. And in this case, because we're using black, it darkens it. If we were using white, it would brighten it in a very intense way. If we switch this to a soft light, it gets a little duller, but it's still pulling in the color. Same thing is true if we use white. It's a little duller, but it does pull in the color. So if we're using another color like orange, you can see that it also interacts with it in similar ways, right? So let's get rid of that yellow. Cool. So we've got right now a black line that's set to soft light. If I wanted it to pull some of the color, but I thought like this was too crazy and I thought that this was too soft, what I would occasionally do is I would duplicate the line, switch it back to normal, and then I would erase away where I wanted more of that color to come through. So I might do something like that. And so that way, when you go from the darker part to the lighter part, as it's lightening, it's pulling the color. And then, of course, you can always adjust the opacity of this layer in order to bring some of that color in. So that could be the technique that I used here, although it's kind of impossible to tell. So let's start talking about the design of this guy and not really the techniques anymore. I think the techniques, what I explained to you, is more or less what I would have used throughout this entire thing. Okay, so let's start the redesign process since we are, let's start the redesign process by actually, let's start the redesign process by identifying the things that we want to affect most, the things that we think are problems before we actually start sketching. I think that's a good, healthy way to go about this. By the way, if you're wondering what the rough sound is, how he's saying it's the rough sound right here, is all the characters from the series said something from a song I liked. And this is a song by Big D and the Kids Table, one of my favorite bands. So let's start highlighting the problems with the illustration. I'm going to lower its opacity just a little bit so that we can really stand out what we're highlighting here. So the very first thing that hits me is this anatomy right here, which isn't actually wildly fucked up, but it's close. And the way I loved this piece when I finished it, but as time's gone on, every time I look at this part right here, all I see is like silly putty that's being like bent around and some weird shit's happening to it, and that kind of drives me crazy. So anatomy in general will be part of what we're talking about as well. We're still going to push it and we're still going to have expressive stylized anatomy, but we are going to attempt to like clean some aspects of it up. The other big thing that just really drives me crazy is the hair. So I get the idea of the character. The character is like this sort of more brutal version of like an anime dude, kind of. He's got anime influence. I mean, the whole thing's got like Joe Mad influence and like Fatal Fury influence and all that kind of stuff. Maybe Street Fighter influence. But then this hair is like just like kind of like a big shape. And there's an aspect of a big shape that's totally cool, but I don't think I reconciled it correctly at all here. I do remember it was supposed to be somewhat funny, because one of my favorite things is stuff that is funny as well as cool. And so, but the thing is that let's analyze this shape for a minute. We've got, make it a little smaller with that. We've got this is the shape. Okay, we've got sideburns. Let's just block it a little chunky. He's got these big eyebrows, but we're going to try and draw through the eyebrows right now. Okay, and then lines. Okay, what do we got here? Let's turn this off. So this is the general shape of the hair that we have. And that's not too bad. Again, it's not very specific, but you know, it's certainly not the worst anime-inspired hair you've ever seen. I think one of the bigger problems with it, though, is actually how the interior is reconciled. When you look at this, like this right here, these like just hairs that just kind of end and they go to like nothing is a problem. It continues here as well. And then you've got this sort of like void of what the fuck is going on. And then you've got finally like the hair spikes. And I think that a lot of the times you'll see in anime some sort of a stylized thing where like, cancel. You'll see some sort of a stylized thing where like the hair is doing some shit like this, and then this is all just kind of like filled in black because they're like, I'm not sorting that shit out. Like, I don't know what this looks like. And that's partially also because in animation, you obviously don't want to have to define all of the aspects of the hair. But this is an illustration, and it is definitely more illustrative than animation. It's got all of these little like painterly bits in there. So I definitely think that we can do something better. For instance, let's start getting into... Oh, no, actually, let's not start getting into the redesign yet. One aspect of this character I remember was that he's from the future, but he gets warped back to this weird medieval time. And that's why he's got all this tech bullshit, and then he's got this sword right here, and it looks super medieval and like broken damage and all that. And then he's got this like crazy gauntlet on over here. So is that something that we really want to clean up? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say that we're going to keep that weirdness because I'm going to treat it almost like this is like a character brief and we have to do those things. From a design perspective, I very much dislike this arrow. I think that arrow is super stupid. I think it may have had something to do with like a clock and like, I don't know. I actually don't know that. I'm kind of more just guessing than anything. And we've got some smoke, no problem. I think the smoke is all fine. We got a lot of texture in here. There's lots of splatter. I was very big into texture at this time, which I still think texture is really important, but I used to like really, really texture things all the time. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And some of it holds up and some of it doesn't. So we've got a lot of little design chunks in here. Again, this is not designed for animation, so it can be really detailed, especially with the way like video games are now. This character can be made once and then animated, and it can be fine. But I think some of that could probably use some amount of cleaning up. So let's get started actually on doing some sort of a redraw and a redesign of this character. I'm going to start by taking this smaller version of the image. I moved it up so that we can make some room for the feet. I don't always put feet because sometimes I think the crop is better without the feet. It really depends. Like all the monsters, for instance, I don't have their feet, and that's just because of the way the crop is. The thing that's actually really shitty about that is one of my upcoming characters is Bigfoot, and he's got big feet, and it's like, okay, what am I supposed to do about that? But anyways, but we're going to do it here just to make sure that we are addressing the design. Okay, let's start by nailing down this guy's anatomy. So his anatomy, he's pretty tall overall. I mean, we don't really have to do this head breakdown, but it's kind of like fun, I guess, to just sort of see it. And I'm obviously roughing it here. I think I'm making the heads a little bigger as I go. Let's kind of get him a little smaller again. So he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 heads tall. He's a pretty tall dude, but that's cool. We'll more or less keep his proportions. What I'd like to do sometimes when I'm doing any type of a redesign of something where it kind of has to still be the same thing, because that's the premise of this exercise right here, is I like to draw right on top. And I don't necessarily draw like what's there, but by having it on top, it's almost like my reference is just like right underneath my drawing the entire time, which is potentially very helpful. It can be hard sometimes to see exactly what it is you're trying to do with the entire thing, because you're obviously, drawing on top. But I find it to be sometimes very helpful to just be right on top of it. So I made his head a little too big. Let's get it something more like that. I'm going to pull him up a little bit though, because again, I'm trying to kind of fix, quote unquote, some of the anatomy. I'll probably end up actually ruining it. That's a good idea. Okay, so we got that. We're taking that arm into account. Let's do this and just get some of what we've got going on here. Yeah, it's a little wonky. Crotch and then legs. I don't really want to mess necessarily with his proportions, because I think that, the idea is that he's got this part here is kind of big, and then the rest of them is kind of like lanky, and I don't really want to disrupt that. Oh my God, I'm going to go off the page again. Let's try to, yeah, because I can definitely feel as I'm moving through with my hand that I want that to be even longer. Okay, let's turn this off for a second. Okay, what do we got here? I think one of the biggest things that I know is that arm feels weird. Even if it doesn't necessarily feel weird in the original, I think it does start to feel weird. So we're going to do some shit like this. Okay, this is not good, but we will roll with it for now. Okay. And then he's got the sword. Okay. Then here, we're going to bring this down. So he's got a very cartoony physique right there, but we need to pull it out like a little bit more on the other side, because he's not too turned away from us. Get his head up here. I'm going to kind of, well, no, his head's pretty scrunched. I'm not going to get too crazy with it. Okay. We're losing some of the hunch, which is fine, I think, only because the hunch, I think, was there to kind of explain some sort of like he was in the shit. I'm not going to really go for that right now, which I guess you could argue means I'm like not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, but I don't really care. This is supposed to be kind of fun, right? And I don't think it worked, so I'm going to get rid of it. Okay, knee, all of this, ankle, foot, cool. Okay, we're close. We're getting there. This bend I don't really like though. My table is hitting something. Let me scoot my table. There we go. Okay, and then he's got this like big ass arm. Let's just go. It's like full on Hellboy shit, right? Okay, let's turn this back on again. Okay, cool. I'm gonna, on my phone, just so that we don't take up screen real estate, I'll throw it somewhere. I'll try to throw it somewhere on the screen right now. On my phone, I'm just gonna bring up this drawing so I can have it like next to me, because what we're gonna start getting into now is like specific design stuff, and I'm gonna be kind of redesigning aspects of them. Since this all isn't like super important, we're saving, I'll just merge it together, and I will go on top of it right here. This is where I'm gonna now start kind of focusing a little bit less on the original, and I'm gonna start drawing just myself like over it. We're gonna flip it horizontally so we can see all those mistakes, and we're gonna start figuring out how we can solve his anatomy a little bit better at least. The original is, he's very kind of lanky here, and I don't know that that's bad, but I'm feeling like, here, let's just try to bring his tricep up a little bit. That kind of makes this part feel a little more skinny, which kind of gets some like length off of him. I should probably reference Real Anatomy to kind of like finish off this section, but I'm not gonna because I'm just trying to get this done really quickly here. I'm not really set up for super deep exploration and reference right now. Okay, we got this. We're trying to get his like basic anatomy, and then we can like wardrobe him basically. Okay, I do kind of miss some of the like ness of the original one, so I'm gonna kind of, what happens if I maybe give him a little bit more of a neck? He's bent over a little. No, I'm not a fan of that. I think he looks better with his head pulled up. Let's go up to here, but let's pull him just a little bit more over. Get some angry eyebrows in there so we can remember what that looks like. Okay, we wrap this, and then he's got his one finger out. Now his distant arm, we need to pull this deltoid out more. And then I'm looking at now the original. It's kind of weird. He's got like a big baggy gray sleeve that goes down into the glove, which kind of makes this whole arm just like that. I'm not super into that. I'm gonna pull it in instead and say that it goes back down to like close to normal. We can still have like some grouping here, like it's kind of jammed up, and then we'll have some aspects, because I don't feel like redesigning like an entire gauntlet right now. We'll just say that it's, you know, it's similar to the old one. I think there are some things that really work in the old one, so we'll just leave some of these like circular elements here. It's got another break right there. Glove. It's got these little like piston things that are kind of funny. I don't know what those do, but I like them. Old me likes some of the same things that new me likes, which is funny. Okay. And then the rest of his anatomy, he's got this leg that's kind of like out more. It's kind of makes it look almost like he's, I guess it kind of works. It feels almost like a Link pose, or like Link from Zelda, as opposed to, I've got him going off the page. Let's bring him in a bit. I don't know, I usually do something more where like the leg is underneath, like that. But that will kind of make him look a little bit like a fencer, and we don't really want that. So let's keep the stance that's kind of closer to the original. And then we've got a dude right here. Okay, that's not too bad for a start. So let's move into the wardrobe and see what we can do design-wise. Okay, real quick, just one thing I want to also tweak is, oh my God, I hate when that happens. I tapped select. Just kind of want to tweak this knee a little bit to be a little flexed. There, that foot looks fine, right? Let's turn that. Okay, and now let's just quickly draw over to get some of that flow back that we're looking for. Okay, cool. Let's call that good. Not perfect, but we're not here for perfect. We're here just for sort of like the kind of academic nature of this entire thing. Let's go ahead and flip him back just so that we can look at everything. And I'll shrink him a little more. Okay, let's merge that, lower this, and start getting in on, excuse me, some of the like details. When we look at the face from the original, he's actually kind of funny in the way that he's got like this big anime hair, but he looks like he's like a little older. I want to make sure that we're capturing some of that, so I'm going to get my phone a little closer to me here. Turn this back on. Let's try to get some of this. So we definitely have the kind of like strong chin, strong shoulders. These are shoulders. Strong cheekbones. We pull this up, go around for our ear. Does he have big ears? No, he's got kind of like hidden ears due to the sideburns that he has. He's kind of angry. He's just like really angry. And he's got giant eyebrows. He went to the, I don't know what, Ryu and Ken school of eyebrows. So let's go ahead and fill those in dark, because when they're that dark, it changes things pretty dramatically as far as the composition of the face goes. We're going to put this little wrinkle in his nose. And then his nose is like out just a bit and then like straight down. Has a little bit of a draw in, and then it goes down to a diamond in the original, which we'll just kind of, go with right now. I think the anatomy on his mouth is a little curve-jacked, so we'll just do something like that for now. Then he's got kind of like a big lady eye, and we come around. Got a little bit of a wild look though, so I'm going to make sure that pupil doesn't touch the top. If you've got an eye, here's a simple eye, you've got this, and you put the pupil like that so that it touches the top like that, it makes somebody look more calm. This is a slightly sinister look, but it's not as bad as if you, oh my gosh, my eraser. It's not as bad as if you were to go like that and it starts looking crazier. If you really want them to look like they're very warm, you do all of that stuff to try and warm up that eye a little bit. Oh my gosh. Touch his register, please. So we want him to be a little crazy, because he just kind of is. And then his other eye is like closed in the original, so I'm just going to assume that maybe it's like fucked up for some reason, and we want it to stay closed. So we're going to do that. Got this other side of the brow. Okay, cool. Let's just say that's good for now. He does have a slight, let me look. Yeah, he's got like slightly pronounced whatever this is called. I'm not an expert on that. Actually, I'm not really into this mouth anymore. I think that he's got like an underbite almost in the original, and I want to make sure that we capture that a little bit. So he's got like this kind of thing going on. Yeah, let's go with something like that. And then we get the sideburns. So the sideburns in the original, let's do a new layer just so we can play with this a little bit. The sideburns in the original are kind of like this. They're like tight to his head. They got like a little bit of a spikiness to them. That's okay, but it doesn't feel as fun as if we kind of did more. Now he does have like really big hair, but we'll try to address these as two separate bits here in a second. So let's go with this just to get like a little more shape out of this. We're not going like full animation style where we're going to get like a big goofy kind of, you know, like a big like, oh, that's a memorable shape. Like we're not doing that right now. We're going for still somewhat serious and under control and a little less iconic. Okay, so let's just for now say that that's his face. It is more or less the same face. We've tightened up some of the structure a little bit, but it's more or less the same face. And now what we're going to do is some hair shenanigans. Now remember, we've got that big crazy shape. If we duplicate this and play with it, you can already see that we've actually elongated his face quite a bit, it seems. Maybe, I can't tell. Anyways, maybe I'm just placing this better. So if that's his hair, it's almost kind of like lion-o hair a little bit. But what is kind of wrong with it is its flow, and as I pointed out before with those like weird lines like there, is that it just doesn't really work. And even if you could get it to work, it just kind of feels bad. So what I'm going to say is, let's bring up the original. Let's also get all of this into a folder so we can manipulate it a little bit more easily. If we look at the original here, I'll bring its brightness up a bit. Let's try to actually identify what we're trying to do here. So we've got essentially like a swoopiness happening, right? We want something that's kind of a swoopiness, which has to come around into some sort of a bang. And then we have another swoopiness that's kind of being captured here. Then we have the back spiky swoopiness as like two different things. Or sorry, as another thing that's sort of like the third element. He's actually got a little bit of like a mullet thing going on back here too. And you can see I pulled this over here because I'm trying to capture this sort of shape happening here. So if we want to try and do something similar to that, which we don't want to do the exact same thing because we already know looking at it that it like just doesn't work out. We want to come in here and do, okay, so we've got something that's kind of like this, right? Where we've got this. But now what we're doing is we're going for like this shape, this shape, this shape. We're trying to make it feel, trying to make it feel a little more free, a little more natural. He doesn't really seem like the type of guy who'd be like making sure all those individual hairs were doing what they needed to be doing. So let's get like a little bit more wildness to this hair, but it's all going still in the same direction. Then we have the other side, which is kind of like something like this. I'm just realizing how much this is starting to look like what's his nuts from Street Fighter 5. Anyways, and then we do like, I'll do like a little branching hair right here. So what we can do is we can say that this is kind of where the two hair clumps are separating. God, he looks kind of funny right now. I mean, I think he's going to look funny no matter what. The premise of this character was always that he was a little funny. Let's create another layer and get some of this like back action happening. Okay. Oof. This really is looking like that guy. What's that guy's name again? Anyways, we'll revisit it. We'll get there. But lastly, we do have the desire. Well, here's the skull. We do have the desire to get some sort of a parity with his other hair. And that's parity, not parody, even though parody would be really easy to do here. Let's get this going something like this. And then some of these shapes I don't know work super well. So he's still hilarious. I mean, that's a hilarious situation. I think we can maybe make this that kind of like audacious cool though, that ridiculous cool with just a few little tweaks to this to kind of like fill out the forms a little more. And this we can have come down. So now what we're kind of creating is we're kind of creating a scenario where he's got like, how am I going to explain this? if we were to delete his bangs, it's almost like all of this hair would just kind of connect. It's like this big plume. Maybe there's even more hair like in the back that we can't see. Then this would come down, this would connect like that. This would maybe connect to that part of his head. So like if he's missing all of this front hair, like that's what he would look like a mad scientist of some sort. And then laid over the top of that is the front part. And so that is how oops, I drew all that on the same thing. And that's kind of how we're gonna reconcile what's happening here. I mean, that is an amazing head of hair. I am into that. Is it because I don't have hair? Anyways, let's call that good and ridiculous. Good and ridiculous, because that's what this character is supposed to be. I'm going to merge all of this hair together. I'm going to delete that duplicated hair. I feel like we're hitting the spirit of the original one, but at least we have solved like a little bit more of what's happening here with his hair. It's like a more competently drawn bad idea, basically. Okay, let's try to get through the rest of this kind of quickly, because we've been hammering away at this already for quite some time. What I want to do now is I want to get to all the costuming. My phone just locked on me. Let me unlock it. The main things that I want to address is the level of noise, and I want to focus the design a bit, because when we bring up the old design, you've got all of these circles. Where am I? Circle, 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 circle. I mean, I love circles as a design motif, but there are so many GD circles across this. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to say there are circles as a huge part of this guy's armor design. He also has some organic futuristic armor shapes, and he's got speakers. Oh yeah, I should highlight that for everyone. These are essentially speakers on his back that's like pumping out music, okay? Let's see, can we emphasize the right things? That's really what we're trying to do here while we're trying to make this design a little bit more direct. So I'm not gonna get to like his glove yet, because his glove is kind of like a background thing, and that's not actually part of the motif, which is interesting. He's got that big-ass glove, but it's not the motif. By the way, I do want to highlight that I like the way this hand came out. The original hand looks really dope, and with like all of these little like working parts and stuff in here, it's like really nice. So my past self, I give my past self some kudos there. But let's go in now and try to figure this out. So he's got giant speakers on his back. Let's make them gianter. Like they're kind of small, right? So let's go with the same design where they almost have this like organic vibe to them. Let's try to bring those still into the design. The one in the back is going to be kind of hard just because there's so much noise. So let's put it back there, but let's not worry about it much for now. We'll come to that in a second. In the original design, we also have these big shoulder things, which you can see right here, that come down and kind of like clamp to him, and it almost looks like the implication is that they do something like that. So let's try to address that, actually. So let's have the shoulders just go straight in from that thing that's on his back, and we'll have them come down. And should we still embrace that original design? I'm not going to embrace the like pop out. I'm just going to have them come down, and we're going to say that it still has the circle. Let's say that there's still a circle aspect to that. Now, the original has these like things that go like that with a line that goes through them, like an LED line. I don't know that I really want all of that right now. I think what I would rather have actually is reinforcement of this shape. So we've got that line in the original one that's reinforcing the this arc, this shoulder arc. I kind of would rather just build that out and then put the line on top of that and then have the circle that's down here. We could even, if we really want to, like put some like bolts here to make it look like it is manufactured. The original just looks really weird. So we're gonna do that for now. And then that means we need to reconcile this bullshit. So how does this come up? This comes up around, and There's, let's say, a part here that goes like that and pulls around. Ugh, this isn't the greatest thing ever. Probably with some extra work, I would work on that a lot more. Also, that curve was totally wrong. We should have the curve go like this. Have it go like this, and then have this look like it's clamping. There's like an interesting organic aspect to the original that we can try to embrace. Like all of these shapes are armor, but they are also organic. I'm gonna cut down. Am I gonna cut down? No, I'm gonna do the exact same amount. Awesome. I'm gonna do the same type of ribbing that's kind of happening in the original one, but I'm not going to put those circles on. I think those circles were kind of a misstep, having like more circles coming up here. As much as I like the idea of it going circle, 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 like it just is too many circles. Let's put the shoulder in. So the original shoulder is mimicking the shapes of a deltoid, like deltoid muscle groups. So let's not do that though. Let's actually take this as an opportunity to try and simplify this, even though that has like a fun organic feel. I'm here to see if we can, try to address some of these problems instead of just repeating everything. So I'm going to keep the same sleeve, have it wrap around. Now we've got this big shape. Maybe we could still mimic that deltoid by having some cuts. No, I don't like that at all. How about one cut over the top? No. How about a curve like this? Something like that doesn't feel too wrong. And then maybe another break right here. And maybe we get some sort of new design element in the top of it. And then over here, let's go ahead and just replicate what was in the original one and have this sort of like weird clamped speaker kind of looking thing. Okay, and so that's still pumping out music. Not really good on my shapes here, but that's okay. That's what the refining step that we are not going to do is for. Okay, now we come down here and he's got, I'm not saying that's done, but let's just call it done for now. And then we've got the belt. The belt has the big circle on it. I don't like the big circle on the belt, but I do like the shape that is above it. So let's just do something like this. And we can still do these circles. I think these little circles are fine. I've got some sort of thing happening here, but I'm gonna just go like this and then have the hip shape still be in there. So we'll go like that on this side, and the hip shape thing will still be in there. So now this, he's really like got the over-defined muscle thing in the original. I'm not doing that, not because I think it's like trash. I'll do a little bit of it here, but let's just call it good. And well, we're kind of starting to touch on that distant arm. We're not going to do that yet. Let's do this. Get this arm around. Not do that big sort of like fat meaty elbow. Try to get like an actual slightly more anatomically correct thing. I don't actually like how the original glove goes up to like here. There's something that's kind of like old anime about that that's kind of neat, but I don't know that I like it that much. I think I'd rather really push the asymmetry and the like bareness of this arm by having the same glove that we have on the other side, but we just eliminate, here, let me bring it up. We're going to eliminate this part. Oh my God. We're going to eliminate, oh my God. This part. Jesus, that took forever to get to. Okay, back to here. So we're gonna keep the knuckles. I think the knuckles look good. This is actually quite an old piece now. I think this is like, I didn't actually check the date when I grabbed it. I should have, but I know where I was and what I was doing when I did this piece. I think this is roughly like 2008 or 7, maybe even. 2007. So this is a pretty old piece, but you can see that there are aspects of my design aesthetic that are still the same as here. And really it's about building. It's similar to how I was showing you at the beginning, that rim light and some of the painterly techniques. Your techniques are always building off of previous things that you've done. That is, and then what you do is you try out your tools, and then you say like, okay, this still works, this doesn't work anymore, or this works, but I do something kind of different now. And I think that is the right way to go. It's just like a healthy way to develop and add to your tool set, and always be evaluating things, like that type of thing. So I pulled this up a little bit on his thigh. I just thought it would be nice to get it up there a little bit. His original has these kind of crazy knee pads. I don't think they're necessarily bad. Actually, I do. I'm going to get rid of the knee circle and just have that be flat there, but I'll keep the circle that's there. It'll kind of emphasize a joint. In the original, I can see that there is already something behind there that's kind of a joint, but I'm going to treat this as almost like the joint accent. And then it comes down to something like this. We're playing a little bit by adding a little extra oomph here to the armor topology, which we're kind of also accenting like a normal knee shape, because it's all supposed to be organic anyways. In the original, there's like a thing on this side that has something coming up. We're going to save that for when we get there. Let's, in fact, move on. Let's do this. Have this come down. I'm getting really messy with this right now because I really didn't want this video to be super long, but I definitely want to make sure we're addressing everything, at least in a rough state. Okay, so the original has these things that kind of come up like this, and then they have like a little cap on them. I don't dislike that. I'm going to leave it, but I'm not going to add in... I like these slits, but they're kind of noisy. I like the slits I just drew. Those feel fine. Okay, we'll stick with that. And then there's a break in the middle where it's like connected. This leg is shorter, but we're not going to worry about that right now. And then we didn't ever reconcile the bottom in the original, so I'm just going to do some usual, like it's like a toe cap with a split and a gap here where it bends, and there's a circle because it bends right there, and then there's a sole to the shoe. Let's go with that. Let's say that that's totally on point. Get the sole of the shoe in there. Okay, let's call that good on the body. There's aspects of this that I think could be better. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I probably should get some of these things to work a little more together. Let's go ahead and try to get this at least looking like there's some parity from one side to the other. Excuse me. Okay, he's got the sword in his hand. We're going to keep the sword as it is. The reason is because the sword is supposed to be basic looking. It's supposed to look like a pretty basic medieval sword. Although I'm tilting it not like it was in my sketch, but let's just say that my canvas goes high enough. We're here for the high-end content. No bullshitting around here. Okay, so there's the sword, and then we've got the back arm. The back arm, as I said, this part here, we'll keep this like it is on the other side. We'll keep this dark gray so that it matches the original one, and it'll be the same color as this part right here. And then we'll have the kind of bunching happening. Now the gauntlet, I said I wasn't going to redesign it. This part here is referenced actually right here in the original. I'll add that to the belt, and then it's referenced again here. I think it's good to continue referencing that. We've got essentially squares and circles. The only thing that kind of bugs me though is the way that the gauntlet curves up in the original one. I don't really dig that. Let's not do that kind of. Nah, that looks like shit too. I think I kind of remember actually this being a pain. It's like an old ass picture, but I kind of remember this. How are we going to solve that? Let's come back to it. We can beat our head against the wall on that in a second. Let's get all of this done. So it's got, the original has like circle, and then this is technically a circle element. I'm not a fan of all those circles getting added, but I'm not against having like the big one. So like having something like this as like a nice big circle, and then building off of it with other circles that aren't like a big glowy one. So like maybe we have like a thing that goes like this, that's almost like bolting it down to that glove. And then we could even go a little further and have something that's like a cord. I don't know why it has to do this zigzag right now. I'm not into justifying my design right now, but let's do something like that. Now the top is still, this is still going to be a giant pain in the ass. Okay, I think I figured it out. So what we're going to do is, instead of making it something that's consistently all the way around, we're going to embellish on it by adding like a big defensive plate kind of to it that'll curve in like that. And we'll have the blocks thinner blocks, not that thick. Go around. And so now we've just solved how does this go up and around and has like a cool feeling. And by solved, I mean good enough for now. It's not great. I'll completely admit that that's not great. And let's just say that that hand, it looks like it's got the block thing again. I'm not going to do that though. I'm just going to have this come down. It's got this. It's got the pistons. Okay. Okay. How are we feeling about this? I'm still not feeling what I decided to do with that shoulder. Maybe it is right to just keep it like kind of anatomical. So we'll go with like, we'll do that. Sure, why not? We'll do something like this where it looks like it's simplifying and grouping and mimicking some of the other aspects like that. But I don't really want to do the circles. But at the same time, I need to do something. This is actually kind of fucked up. I'm going to just, I wasn't really paying attention. So I'm going to do something like that. That's looking okay. Let's do, I do feel like something needs to happen there. Let's maybe vents. Just put some vents there so that we're, and they won't, they'll be like still the same color. Yeah, that's fine. That works. I like that. Let's sort of call this good, because I don't want this video to go on too long. If you actually want me to see this, if you want to see me take this further, please let me know. I can take it a little bit further. I really don't want to get into something where I'm having to repaint the entire character, but if you'd like to see like sort of some of the line work and how I might handle certain aspects of like maybe adjusting some colors or something like that, I'm happy to do that. What I will say right now is, what have we addressed? What did we talk about addressing with this? We have addressed the hair. Again, the hair is insane, but that is kind of the point. We have addressed some of the anatomy. We have addressed the noisiness of the design, although I think the design can still be noisy depending on how we color it. So that would probably be good for us to cover in like sort of part 2. I think that's kind of it. I mean, did we kind of hit everything? Now, what I would do in the next phase of this, where is my line? There we go. Okay, I want to just erase away here. Is I would take what we've got here, and I would just duplicate this folder, and then flatten it, turn this one off, and then just set this to black. Just take the brightness all the way down. And now we have ourselves like a line rough that we can start working with. I would come in here on a new layer and start actually, like I bring my fat pencil down quite a bit, and we would start the actual lining process. This is how I go through and clean up my lines so that they are nice and crispy and solid, and they give me the support that I need to do the coloring. Now, the original one had color that was, oh my gosh, I hate when that happens. I hate when the undo happens just as you're making the mark. That's like a new problem for me. Anyways, so the original one had lines that we then did like a full render under. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking here, is that it would be along the same lines. Along the same lines. So like this is the type of thing I would do to maybe reconstruct that original one. But for those of you who've asked about like lines and how I actually like ink and stuff, I ink, quote unquote, with the fat pencil, the same thing that I do the roughs with. When you get it really small and you get in here really tight for these details, you can get it to basically be a pen, right? Because you can make it black and just go over the section a couple of times and you get this like crispy little thing. So like that right there is how I do then the line work. So if this was interesting to you, because again, I'm gonna wrap it right there. I think this has already gone on quite long enough. If that was interesting to you, watching us go through all of this process of getting to that sketch, breaking down a little bit like what's happening here, showing the painterly stuff and these shapes. If that was interesting and you'd like to see this go a little bit further, I'm willing to take this to, let's say, like a color block-in or something like that. I don't think you're going to want to sit and watch me in real time do like lines for the whole thing, because it will get pretty tedious. But I think that we can go a little bit further with it, and there might still be some learning. So let me know, and we'll try to do that for you next time. If there is a next time. So that's the train wreck that I promised. I hope it lived up to being a train wreck, and I will see you hopefully on a better episode in the future. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. And if you're looking for more of this kind of high quality content, you can find me at these websites across your local internet.